Morning, Mr. Rutherford and Mr. McDaniel. We are the Ion by Ion team, where we are reimagining mass spectrometry. I'm Albert Su,
And I'm Connor Harper.
PhD candidate.
So to begin the journey of our venture, we first had to have our idea. And in our case, it was a big idea. Big, of course, referring to these very small molecules that we're looking at. Current mass spectrometry methods that exist measure stuff that's smaller than 1 to 10 megadaltons, and other conventional techniques measure stuff larger than 1 teradalton. So there's a gap in between that I came across as part of my PhD research where there's not really good tools to measure. And so that's where our idea came from. We came up with a tool, charge detection mass spectrometry, or CDMS, there in orange, that fills that gap and is a new measurement technology that has a lot of potential applications.
The thing that we did in pace of the class was to find a problem solution fit. We did this through the very important tool that you taught to us, the stakeholder interview. Here are two of the key contributors that we worked with that helped us figure out what we needed to do next in order to better our minimum viable product. First is Mr. Savage, who is one of the professors here at Berkeley that we collaborated with, and from him we learned a lot about what our revenue model should be and what researchers look for. In addition, we also learned that the most important thing that our unfair advantage would also give us was our speed, as well as the ability to quickly process the samples.
So, as we were figuring out what our product really would be, at first our idea was to sell the whole shebang, the whole instrument, which we're going to show you here. It's also quite loud. This equipment that the selling this all at once to somebody who wasn't quite sure if they had a use for it or weren't necessarily sold on the whole thing might be difficult. There's a large barrier to entry there. So instead, we changed our revenue model to, instead of selling the whole instrument, to selling just the analysis, the data, and our consulting on what those data mean. And we think this presents a far smaller barrier to entry, and our stakeholder interviews also bore that out. People were more willing to pay a few small fees at first to test our technique and get a feel for what it can do for them before committing to larger or longer term services and purchases.
So another thing that was key from this class was the concept of get marketing. In get marketing, we used our professor, who is also our advisor, Dr. Evans Williams, to give us his industrial contacts, academic contacts, and research articles. Thus, this allowed us to get our first customer base.
Moving forward and continuing to fund this venture is, of course, important to consider. Right now, as part of my PhD project, a lot of this work has been funded through academic funds. However, we want to move on and kind of break off from the academic sector, and we've applied for the UC Berkeley Accelerator, Startup Accelerator, which can provide up to $50,000 in an investment, and then use that as a launch pad for applying and proposing the grant proposal for the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR, National Science Foundation funding, which in a phase one funding can provide up to $250,000 of non-dilutive funding, and proceeding to phase two, up to $1.7 million of non-dilutive funding to build and expand our business, scale our business.
So moving forward, one of the other tools that we will utilize is QB3 Startup in a Box, which will give us three things that we also learned were important from this class. The first one is the concept of intellectual property, and QB3 will help us protect our intellectual property as well as scout the market to see if there are existing forms of this product, which there aren't. Secondly, another thing that this class went over was the legal topics. So we think that incorporation should be a next step in order to quickly and safely build a company which we can charge money from. And finally, we will continue with our research, as that is what our unfair advantage is.
One of the advantages of this QB3 is that it helps us figure out our intellectual property landscape with an FTO or a freedom to operate analysis, and it also will help us secure licensing for technology that was invented and is owned by the University of California. Thank you very much.